So we're gonna go ahead and start the install of this GT350 strut tower brace on my regular GT Mustang. This is a little more expensive, but it's a much nicer looking piece and just a little bit lighter being all aluminum. And we also have the steel K brace that we're going to install as part of the kit. We're going to start by loosening up the cowl on the car. So we have to go ahead and pop the battery cover. Just got these little hand fasteners on here. They come out pretty easy. Got 3 of these guys. Now that I say that, I think I need 2 hands just to hold the base. Got 3 of these guys. And then got hardware around the cowl. We've got a bolt here we have to undo. And there's some pop clips. You can see them around it. So we're gonna pop the pop clips out and we should be able to get enough height, and I did this on my previous S550 Mustang, to get to the hardware under here and put that K-brace in. There's a plastic, like half K-brace for lack of a better term, that you need to take out, and then you can get the one that actually provides some form of structural support in there. Just wanted to note an interesting little sticker I found when I took the battery cover off. It looks like it has something around the build date. Build date on the door is September 2018, and I think the Oasis build date shows it as October 2018, and this has got it right in the middle, so somewhere in between was when this car was actually built. 2 bolts right here, which is what you're going to mount the K-brace onto first, and then the strut tower brace after. It's easier to get this positive battery terminal out of the way, and you need to get this little tie down grommet out of the way. So I'm going to pop the negative just as that's proper procedure, and then take the positive terminal off and tuck them over to the side. So if this little tie down grommet thing is tight, mine's real tight because the car's brand new. Find it helpful to take some kind of pry tool, put it right up on the strut bolt, and then pull up on the cable and just push down on this guy. It helps pop it up. They are kind of a pain, but if you do something like that, it comes off real easy, and you don't tear that tie up with like a wrench or something like that. That wouldn't be too kind to it. So let's move this guy out of the way. It may look goofy, but I find shop gloves are probably the best, easiest thing to put over the battery terminals. It looks goofy as hell, but works pretty well. So once you have all 6 of those pop clips out, all right around that cowl, you can go ahead, get your 13 millimeter socket, start popping these bolts here, and then I believe, let's see if I can get the camera set down here. I won't lose my socket. Okay, so there's one right under here. You can see the stud hanging off. You got to get that guy off right there. And then I believe there's one right there. So I'm going to take all those off. And then you can start working the K-brace. And you have to get these guys off too. I have to figure out what size those are. I don't remember if they're 14 mil or if they're, or sorry, 13 mil if they're 14. But you definitely need a deep socket for those. Don't put anything near this crevice. I was popping off, I think, one of these 2 clips, I can't remember which one. Clip shot off. You may even want to put a towel or a shirt in there or something. Clip shot off and went under there. I managed to be able to get to it by popping these 3 clips off in the fender well. Reaching my hand in there and getting it out. But yeah, this is like, I got lucky because it landed close to where the splash guard was, but this could be the place of doom. You have to take a lot of other things apart. So it's only a plastic clip, but I didn't feel like going and finding another one. I don't like parts rattling around. So just for reference, the nuts on the strut tower are 15 millimeter. You're gonna need a 15 millimeter deep socket to get those off. So we have all of the 13 mil and the 15 mil strut tower brace bolts out. There were 4 13 mils, I believe. One here, 2 under the cowl. The one here closest to the battery is kind of a pain because you can't get quite as much lift on the cowl. You have to get a spanner wrench, or not a spanner wrench, but an open-ended wrench in there. But once you have those all off, you should be able to pop this guy off. one hand here, but we got it out. And I believe the only purpose that this plastic half K-brace serves is just a place, you can see the little tabs or little holes in there to mount the battery cover. So it's amazing what lengths the manufacturers will go to save a few bucks, because I can't imagine putting that steel K-brace in there could cost a whole heck of a lot more, especially from a manufacturing ease standpoint. It'd probably be about the same, but you know, it gives them a aftermarket add-on option, and sure, that metal piece costs a few cents more. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and get the K-brace and throw it in here. So I'd recommend throwing down a towel, or I have a spare fender mat, over your engine cover and over anything else, like your brake fluid reservoir there. Because the steel K-brace is pretty, it's not crazy heavy, but if it's one person, you're gonna want something to be able to set it on and not tear everything up. So just a little bit of peace of mind. Takes a little bit of fitting it in there, wiggling it in. You gotta slip it, the K-brace, in between the plastic cowl and the metal sheet shelf below. What I found helpful is I actually seated, sorry about that noise, I actually seated this guy down all the way on the passenger side, and then I found it was easier to line up the driver's side. With it kind of hanging, perched on the top of these studs, when I first tried to fit it, I had to start putting pressure on the driver's side, flexing it in. I didn't really want that spring force on it, so I decided to drop these all the way down, and then the driver's side went on real easy. So put one side down, passenger worked for me, then land the other side, and we're gonna start running the hardware on the back end. So once you have those 13mm bolts hand tightened down, going ahead and throwing the actual strut tower brace on. I'm not gonna torque anything until I get everybody kind of cinched up where it wants to be, and then I'll go ahead and torque all the hardware on the K-brace, and then torque down the strut tower brace. I may have to use a crow's foot. I hope I have a 13mm crow's foot, but I may have to use a crow's foot on the one bolt that's under the cowl. I think I can get my torque wrench under the driver's side one, but that passenger side, as I recall, I may have needed a crow's foot. I may be able to get it under there because my torque wrench is skinnier, but we'll see. One thing I wanted to point out with these strut tower braces and K-brace, if you're going to do it on your S550 Mustang, just be aware that access to your oil dipstick kind of sucks. It's hard to get in video, but it's actually directly under. There you go. It's right under that strut tower brace. And I had that problem with the regular GT1 as well. So you gotta play a little games to snake it in there. You can definitely get it out, but it's just kind of a pain, and that's gonna drive you nuts. I guess you could take the brace off every time you decide to check your oil, but that'd be a real pain. Need to probably be replacing these nylock nuts quite often. But anyway, that's just a note. It's not the end of the world, but it is an access issue, and Ford puts these on their stock cars with certain packages, so they must have anticipated that access problem. So the torque on the K-brace, the 13mm bolts, is 26 pound-feet, 35 Newton-meters. So we're gonna go ahead. I've got the strut tower brace snug down, just hand tight, just have everything seated, and we're gonna go ahead and torque those guys. So torquing these 13 mils down on the K-brace, it's all easy except for this one guy right under here. And I mentioned that I was going to use a crow's foot. Unless you have a crow's foot that closes the end, I don't know if you can see that. I got a little bit of damage on the bolt head, but it may want to rotate out on you, so don't use a crow's foot. Well, I guess use one at your own risk. If it's boxed in, it'll probably be all right, but mine was just a regular old cheapy crow's foot, and the surfaces on the inside are a little rounded, so it just rotated out. Luckily, it didn't wreck the bolt, and I was able to shove some foam up under here and get this guy up enough to be able to get my torque wrench under there. It was a pain, but I got it under there. Didn't really cause any damage to anything either, which is nice. I tried to take the wiper blade off. I'll have to find the torque for that nut now, But unlike when I did it on my Fiesta, the linkage under here has a lot of flex in it. So when I was trying to, without a puller, I was trying to rock it back and forth, and the linkage was just absorbing everything, and I didn't want to damage anything by trying to get it out that way. So I just left it as is and pried this guy up, and I figured worst case I wrecked a piece of plastic over trashing the linkage and possibly bending whatever it's mounted to inside. So we're gonna go ahead, torque down the 15 mil bolts on the actual strut tower brace, and those go to 41 foot-pounds. Okay, so there it is, all installed. Everything's torqued up. Not too bad, like I mentioned, that one bolt under the cowl is a real pain in the butt. I remember that from the time I did this on my 2016. So hopefully that K-brace will never have to come off. I guess if they ever decide to, this engine ever went or something like that, they'd have to pull it out. But anyway, that's a whole lot of other problems. So yeah, not too bad. Just I'd highly recommend, if you're going to use a crow's foot, use one that's close-ended, or just hand tighten it, honestly, because the irony of the whole thing was, when I finally crammed my torque wrench in there, I was dead on with a hand tight with a standard wrench, open-ended wrench, just tighten it to the end. So probably could have just left it as is, but decided I need to bleed on it a little bit. So there we go. It's pretty nice unit. I really like the finish on this GT500 version a lot better. I'll see how it holds up over time, but it's kind of nice. It has that little riveted plaque on there. I think it adds to the engine bay. Still not a fan of this engine cover. I don't know. It's kind of goofy looking. I may take it off eventually. But, there you go.